We are going to begin this hour with President Trump taking another shot at fulfilling one of his top campaign promises, restricting birthright citizenship. Yesterday, the president signed 2 executive orders that he says will curb so-called birth tourism. NBC News correspondent Chris Pallone is in Washington, D.C. and joins us with more. Hi, Chris. Good morning.
Yeah, hi there, Savannah. Good morning to you. The Supreme Court ruled against President Trump's first attempt at restricting birthright citizenship, a right guaranteed by the 14th Amendment. Critics predict these new executive orders will meet the same fate. After losing at the Supreme Court in June, President Trump is taking another shot at restricting birthright citizenship.
Unfortunately, we had a bad decision, very unfair decision. Our country suffers because of it, and we're ending it a different way.
The president signing 2 executive orders Thursday, taking a more narrow approach to stop the children born to non-citizens in the U.S. from automatically being granted U.S. citizenship.
We're cracking down very big crackdowns, and this will give us the right to do it in a much more forceful manner.
In a narrow June decision, the Supreme Court shot down President Trump's first attempt at restricting the right guaranteed by the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. The new executive orders are more focused, denying automatic citizenship to children of foreign diplomatic staff working in the U.S., children of people classified as alien enemies, children born in U.S. territories if Congress changes the law, and children born to mothers taking part in so-called birth tourism.
They're buying their way in, and we're not going to let it happen.
If you're telling a consular officer you're here as a tourist, but your true purpose and intent is to go to a baby mill, give birth, and try to mint an American citizen while you're here, then you're committing a fraud against the American government.
The Trump administration says it will also deny visas to some pregnant women trying to enter the U.S. Several civil rights groups say they'll challenge the new orders in court. And the nation's largest Hispanic civil rights group called the new executive orders another effort to demonize black and brown immigrants. And the ACLU said no matter how many executive orders President Trump signs, birthright remains the law of the land. Savannah.
All right, Chris, thank you very much for starting us off this hour. For more on this, let's bring in NBC News legal analyst Danny Cevallos. He is here on set with us. Danny, always great to see you. So I want to talk through this concept of this intent to engage in birth tourism. How would it play out to try to prove something like that?
So there are 2 different orders, and intent isn't spoken about in the sense of a crime beyond a reasonable doubt or anything like that. The executive orders don't create crimes. And in fact, the first executive order doesn't even speak of intent. It really just asks, was there a contract? Did money exchange hands? Did each side do something? Are there receipts? That's what it asks about. The second executive order really just vests the consulate, vests people who are considering visas with tremendous power. What's interesting is that those decisions are essentially unreviewable. I mean, you can review them, but they have so much discretion, it makes it very, very difficult to even get into court if you want to challenge that decision at a consulate.
Do you think this is headed for another showdown between the president and the Supreme Court?
You know, it's hard to say. I mean, the Supreme Court just weighed in on this 5 weeks ago. So here we are again with some of the same issues. So to some degree, it could be argued that the Supreme Court, Justice Roberts, covered all of this. He went into excruciating detail on issues like diplomats and birth tourism. So you could see a Supreme Court saying, well, whatever appeals court it gets to, that's the final word. We don't even need to hear this because we already went over this several weeks ago. Or there's the approach that, look, this is always important constitutionally speaking, and the court should hear it no matter what.
So let's talk about, let's just say it went there. The possibility, just in the way that the president has narrowed his scope here on this, could that sort of happen with the Supreme Court and then look at potentially modifying the 14th Amendment with some type of narrow birth tourism language there? Or is that an act of Congress? What could we see happen on that front now that the president's raised that specifically?
Only Congress can amend the Constitution, and it takes a lot of Congress to do it. Certainly not a bare majority. But when it comes to the Supreme Court really interprets the Constitution. And I say that because they just interpreted it. And this exact provision of the Constitution of the 14th Amendment. So that's why I see this maybe not having too much for the Supreme Court to really decide. I could see them taking this and saying, we've already been over a lot of this. We already decided this just 2 months ago, and here we are again. That is the interesting part. To what degree would a court decide this has already been decided, and very recently so?
Jenny Savalos, thanks. We appreciate you as always. Well, another news out of Washington, the Justice Department is now reviewing a contempt referral against Dr. Anthony Fauci. It comes after a Republican-led Senate committee voted to hold him in contempt over his refusal to answer questions at that public hearing last week. NBC News senior national politics reporter Jonathan Allen joins us with that and all the latest out of D.C. Hi, John. So what happens now that this case is in the Justice Department's hands?
Good morning, Savannah. It's everyone's guess what happens now. The Justice Department has said that it received this contempt recommendation from the Senate Homeland Security Committee, but has not said what they're going to do with it. I think there are a lot of legal scholars that believe that because Anthony Fauci was given a pardon by by President Joe Biden, and because the full Senate didn't act on this, and because Fauci invoked his Fifth Amendment right to not incriminate himself during those hearings, that it would be very difficult for the Justice Department to bring any sort of prosecution against Fauci. And that it would set a huge precedent, by the way, for future prosecutions of people who have been pardoned and for future prosecutions of people who invoke their constitutional rights.
John, I want to ask you a little bit more Justice Department news. In the social media posting earlier this morning, we saw Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski say she will now oppose Todd Blanche's nomination to be Attorney General to fully get that job. What does this mean for his chances of being confirmed?
It looks like we're down to one, Savannah. The vote of Bill Cassidy, Republican of Louisiana, he would make the difference if he were to decide to come out against Todd Blanche, to vote against Todd Blanche. That nomination would probably go down, given all the counting that's gone on both sides so far. Cassidy, you will recall, is not returning to the Senate next year because President Trump endorsed his opponent in the Republican Senate primary in Louisiana. And it will be interesting to see whether Cassidy believes Blanche should be the next Attorney General, whether he believes Blanche should not be the Attorney General, or whether he simply decides to take out some retribution on President Trump.
Other news, John, here, Republican Senator Mitch McConnell, he says he's been discharged from that rehab center where he was recovering from a fall he suffered. That was all the way back in mid-June. Any sense now of when he'll be back in the Senate?
No. Senator McConnell did not say in his statement any sort of timetable for his return to the Senate. People have been waiting eagerly and anxiously to hear about his condition, about his recovery, and whether and when he will actually return to the Senate. He said he's going to be working from home. In that statement, we still haven't seen Senator McConnell on camera or taking questions. So your guess is as good as mine, Savannah.
I suppose you could have just stopped with no. I appreciated that, John. All right, we are putting you through it this morning. It's just a round robin of all the headlines out of D.C. One more for you. The FCC voted yesterday to eliminate limits on broadcast TV ownership. We've seen a lot happen with the FCC in this particular administration. How does this fit into this broader media agenda for President Trump?
It's a great question, Savannah. I think the key here is what the FCC did is they decided they're going to judge on a case-by-case basis whether broadcasters are able to expand their network of local television stations. So what that does is it puts an extraordinary amount of power in the hands of the FCC to determine which deals can go through. And what Brendan Carr has said, what the FCC has indicated, is that the content of that will be part of the decision-making. So lots of power to encourage TV networks to broadcast particular content.
John Allen doing a lot for us this morning. We appreciate it, John. Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, President Trump is lashing out at the media after reports of the U.S. running short on key munitions in the war with Iran. It led to a crisis meeting, we now know, at the Pentagon after a top Pentagon official received an angry phone call from the president himself. It comes as negotiations over the future of the Strait of Hormuz drag on. NBC News chief international correspondent Keir Simmons is following the latest on this for us. Keir, good morning.
Hey there, good morning, and still no news, which in this case, maybe no news is bad news. A regional official telling us that there may be rivalries inside Iran that are making an agreement more difficult to reach. And we have news of one faction of the Iranian military allegedly targeting Saudi Arabia. More about that in a moment, but first, that ships in the Strait of Hormuz are continuing to face targeting by Iran, and that US blockade. The talks so far seem to be dragging on. President Trump saying, quote, "I think we're doing very well. I just, I'm involved in the negotiation. I think we're doing fine. It could be soon." Of course, he did say that there was going to be an announcement, or very likely to be an announcement, this week. Now, Friday morning, you're beginning to wonder whether or not that really will come about. Now, the Fars news agency, that's a semi-official news agency in Iran, says that an agreement between Iran and Oman, which is the country on the other side of the Strait of Hormuz, an agreement between those two countries about how to manage the Strait of Hormuz is in front of the Iranian parliament. But it also says that details of that agreement include that vessels will be charged, or that there will be a fee or some kind of way of making payment. And it says that US and Israeli vessels will not be allowed to pass through that crucial waterway. That, of course, will be controversial, and the Trump administration has consistently said that it is opposed to charges in the Strait of Hormuz. We haven't heard from Washington or from regional capitals confirming whether or not that is indeed what is being proposed. But we should say that Iran has consistently said that it's not negotiating with the United States, that it is only negotiating with Oman. Now, to that question of Saudi Arabia being targeted, a Saudi Arabian senior Saudi official tells me that multiple intelligence agencies have information that a group in Iran's IRGC, its military wing, is supervising a planned attack on Saudi Arabia from Iraq and from Yemen, from the Houthis, presumably. That is potentially one part of the Iranian regime trying to make a move to make these talks more difficult though they already are. And then, meanwhile, President Trump answering questions about that NBC News report that the US is running low on some munitions. He is denying that report, saying the US military has unlimited supply. Whether or not, in the days to come, he will return to threatening a massive escalation in the conflict, we will see, but certainly that surely becomes more and more of a possibility the longer it takes to try to find some kind of an agreement for just one small part of this negotiation. Just remember that it's not the whole peace deal, it's just one thing, the Strait of Hormuz, how to get that reopened. Guys?
Keir, thank you so much. Well, back here in the U.S., tech giant Meta is now facing nearly $1 billion in penalties to address harm done to children using Facebook and Instagram. In the second phase of this landmark trial, a New Mexico judge has just ordered Meta to pay an additional $567 million, bringing the total penalties in this case to $942 million. In March, the jury in the case found Meta knowingly harmed children's mental health, in addition to concealing its awareness of child sexual exploitation on its platforms. Much of the new money will go toward youth treatment services, with the rest funding awareness, prevention, and screening programs. The order also requires Meta to improve its age assurance tools and other child safety measures. Now, Meta disagrees with the ruling and says it plans to appeal. Well, this morning we are learning new details about the suspect accused of igniting one of the most destructive wildfires in Washington state history. Authorities say that suspect is now admitting he is a serial arsonist and has set more than 24 fires across the region. Emergency crews are still fighting to contain the historic fire near Spokane that has already destroyed hundreds of homes. NBC News national correspondent Morgan Chesky is out west with the latest for us. Hi, Morgan.
As firefighters continue to battle the flames around Spokane and homeowners face utter destruction, stunning new charges depicting a serial arsonist in 37-year-old Aaron Fairnacci. Fairnacci now charged with intentionally starting the most destructive fire in Spokane's history and 4 other counts of first-degree arson dating back to July of last year.
Aaron Forrest Fairnacci.
Detective Sharon Fairnacci initially denied responsibility, but then gave a detailed description of Spokane's Old Trails fire that destroyed hundreds of homes in Saturday's fast-moving inferno. Investigators say he shared how he planned and executed his plan to start fires and maximize the spread, confessing he planned it 2 weeks earlier, even researching the weather to ensure a dangerously hot and windy day. Adding, the 37-year-old admitted he feels fire is powerful, beautiful, and said arson is an easy crime to get away from. Court documents going on to say Farinacci claims to have ignited 25 fires near his home between July and August of last year and was questioned by police multiple times but never arrested.
You believe you have the sole person responsible in custody?
Yes, we do.
Sheriff John Knowles speaking to the challenge of proving arson cases.
Why were charges not filed against him last year?
Back to when those investigations happen, you have to have people who can reasonably put a suspect in a certain place at a certain time.
And in the Old Trails fire, authorities have just that. Eyewitnesses who contacted police after spotting Farinacci acting suspiciously near where that massive fire began.
And fire officials stress that the coming days will be paramount in this firefight, pointing to the fact that temperatures could hit 100 degrees and that gusty winds are forecast for this upcoming Saturday. The sheriff telling me even the smallest spark could start a brand new wildfire. We'll send it back to you.
Morgan, thank you very much. Well, from that fire danger out west to then this rainy end to the work week in the east, let's get a check on your Friday forecast. Angie Lastman's with us tracking it all. Hey, Angie, good morning.
Good morning, Savannah. No shortage of weather to talk about as we roll into the weekend. We've got, as you mentioned, all of the fire concern across parts of the west. Let's start with those fire alerts. You can see the fire weather watches and red flag warnings are up across parts of the Pacific Northwest. This is because we've got all the ingredients kind of there. And as Morgan just mentioned, they do kind of worsen in the coming days. We've got gusty winds up to 30 miles per hour, and we've got low humidity, not to mention those very warm temperatures that we've been talking about for days and days now. So no surprise, we've still got air quality alerts as well. As firefighters continue to battle those fires, we're going to continue to see kind of the denser smoke focused across parts of the Pacific Northwest, and then that hazier kind of milky sky across parts of the Midwest. Big picture look for your air quality alerts. It's really a much smaller area of concern, but still we've got some areas that are dealing with unhealthy and even very unhealthy air quality, again, across parts of Idaho, Montana, Washington, and Oregon. So heads up, that's going to be something you'll see through the day today. Spokane coming in at 156 right now. So again, taking those necessary precautions. The heat also remaining a big story. Much of the West under these alerts, 81 million people, Salt Lake City, Sacramento, Medford, Los Angeles, Phoenix, all included in that as we gear up for temperatures once again into the triple digits. Salt Lake City, 101 today. You're staying in that range by tomorrow. We've got highs into the hundreds for Denver as well by Saturday. Phoenix, 113 on Saturday as well. The East also hot and humid. We've got humidity conditions leaving us with feels like temperatures of 101 in New Orleans, Tallahassee, even Philadelphia will feel like 102 by this afternoon. New York City ends up into those 90s. And we've got some showers and thunderstorms to talk about. Notice that severe potential stretching from New York to Washington, D.C. through this afternoon and evening, Savannah.
All right, Angie, thank you so much. Well, we are learning new details this morning about what's now a nationwide recall on jalapeños linked to a salmonella outbreak. The FDA is investigating a San Diego-based distributor that sourced the peppers from Mexico as officials work to pinpoint this source of the contamination. NBC News correspondent Ann Thompson has the latest.
The salmonella-tainted jalapeno peppers driving this latest outbreak are being recalled. The FDA says San Diego-based Coast Citrus distributors agreed to the action. It supplied the hot peppers to Chipotle and Qdoba restaurant chains. The companies say they are no longer serving those items. Like the lettuce linked to the cyclospora outbreak, the recalled jalapenos come from Mexico, where some 63% of all our imported vegetables are grown. But the government says the FDA only inspects a tiny fraction of the food.
They only inspect 2% of all imported products.
Only 2%?
Only 2%.
Barbara Kowalczyk leads George Washington University's Institute for Food Safety.
So how do we know the other 98% is safe?
Well, and that's not tested. That's just inspected. FDA doesn't have the resources to go out to those establishments and check to make sure that their food safety systems are working. Even here in the United States, they only inspect facilities once every 5 to 7 years.
Now come the lawsuits. A Minnesota woman is taking Chipotle to court after she got sick from eating a burrito bowl and was hospitalized with salmonella that triggered sepsis in June. While this outbreak may be ramping up, signs the cyclospore contamination is waning. Michigan, the epicenter with more than 12,000 cases, says illnesses are on the decline, and it's lifted its warning to avoid bagged salads. Back to the jalapenos, the FDA says it does not appear that the peppers in question were sent to grocery stores. Instead, they went to wholesalers, food service companies, and restaurants. If you have jalapenos at home and you are worried, know a couple of things. First of all, washing helps, but you can't completely wash off salmonella. The only way to kill it is to cook it. And when in doubt, throw it out. Back to you.
All right, Ann Thompson, thank you very much.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.